Hello, everyone, and welcome to our wellness webisode all about fad diets. My name is Janell Soika. I'm a health services specialist here at Geisinger, and today I'm joined by Sara Meloy, one of our amazing senior registered dietitian nutritionists. We're excited to chat with you, Sara, about what fad diets are, how to spot them, and most importantly, how to build a healthier, more balanced approach to eating. Just a disclaimer, this information is being provided to increase your awareness. It is not intended to be medical advice. If you believe that you may have any medical conditions or have specific questions regarding your health, please see your physician. Welcome, Sara, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
All right. So, with so many diet trends popping up online and in the media, I'm definitely curious to explore what fad diets are, their appeal, risks, how they compare to sustainable nutrition practices. So, let's kick things off with a question we hear all the time. What exactly is a fad diet, and what are some of the most popular fad diets right now?
This is a great question. Fad diets, in short, are a lifestyle change that they tend to promote very quick results and health benefits without really being supported with scientific evidence. The more popular ones you've probably heard of in recent years are tend to focus a lot on high protein intake. So your keto diet, your carnivore diet, paleo, but also intermittent fasting is one that gets talked about a lot too.
Great. Okay, so we got a sense of what fad diets are. Let's talk about how to spot them. Because let's face it, some of them can sound convincing at first glance, especially when they promise those fast results. It makes me wonder if all fad diets are bad, though. So, what are some red flags to look for when evaluating a new diet trend?
Um, Key features of any fad diet would be really highly restrictive food choices. So, diets that eliminate the ability to eat specific foods or even whole food groups. Again, they promise extreme changes. They can be very, very strict rules to follow, sometimes unrealistic rules to follow at sometimes. Red flags to consider too is uh, promising results that wouldn't necessarily be health beneficial or safe for certain individuals.
Great. That is definitely really helpful. And I think we can all keep those in mind when we come across those fad diets. It can help us decipher is something, if this is something we should take part in. But beyond the hype, there can be real consequences to following these diets, especially over time. And like you mentioned, if there is no research to back up these diets, then we could be putting ourselves in even more harm. So, what are some of the potential health risks associated with following fad diets long term?
The most simple answer with that is by eliminating specific foods or whole food groups, you have risks of nutritional deficiencies. Whether it's a calcium deficiency, vitamin D deficiencies, a lot of them reduce fruits intake. So you're reducing fiber, you're reducing antioxidants and phytochemicals that our immune system needs. Um, in addition to that, these very high protein diets can be very hard on the kidneys. So they talk about the benefits of going into ketosis and ketones. And ketones are processed and eliminated through the kidneys. And if the kidney isn't able to handle that larger amount of ketones coming through, over time, it can cause the kidneys to be less efficient. Um, Now, there are other research studies talking about yo-yo dieting. So, losing dramatic amounts of weight and then regaining weight. The reality about crash diets is that 95% of participants end up regaining their old weight. So we play this cat and mouse back and forth. We lose a lot of weight, but then we end up regaining that weight. And even 69% of those individuals don't end up hitting their weight loss targets. So we get frustrated, we give up, we regain some weight, and then we work on weight loss again. That yo-yoing back and forth has shown increased cardiovascular risks. So over time, we're stressing our heart out. Not only that, when we lose weight, we can't measure how much of that weight loss is actually fat tissue and how much of that weight loss is muscle mass. And muscle burns the most calories. It's the most metabolically active tissue in the body. So the more muscle you end up losing, the less calories you end up burning, which puts us back into that position where we're going to most likely regain that weight. So there's lots of bad stuff that goes along with these fad diets.
Definitely. Those all sound like things that we should stay away from. And there is a lot of these diets out there, and it's definitely hard to know what actually works long term. And these fad diets lead to unhealthy relationships with food. So let's talk about ways that we can actually create a healthy relationship. What does a sustainable, healthy eating plan look like?
This is a great question because it looks different for everybody. Everyone responds at their own pace. And the ideal sustainable change, to be truthful, is the change that you are willing to be consistent with. So I have often talked with my patients about the fact that diet programs can sometimes be short-sighted because not everybody fits into the same cookie cutter mold. So, one change could be, all right, I need to eat more vegetables in my diet. Looking at, okay, how often am I eating vegetables currently? Maybe it's twice a week. So the goal that I would want to be focusing on is how do I get one more day of a vegetable in my diet? Or maybe it's the portion size that needs to change. So instead of that wimpy little portion of veggies on the plate, making sure that it looks a little bit bigger on the plate and something else might look a little smaller on the plate. I know a common goal that many of my patients talk about is hydration. I think we could all stand to drink a little bit more water and thinking about if we're supposed to, I've heard drink our weight in water. That can be an overwhelming change to think about at first. So, focusing on a goal to just add one additional cup of water a day, start to be consistent with that change. And once we're consistent with that, we talk about adding that next additional cup of water every day. So really it's about the change that you feel you can be consistent with making.
Yeah, those are all really great suggestions, and that sounds much more doable to partake in. And it also sounds like it's more about lifestyle, than these quick fixes. So the sustainable changes might take longer, but it definitely seems like the safer option. What are some easy ways to build out a balanced plate at each meal?
Well, when you said about sustainable changes, just one comment I had about that was individuals who maintain the weight that they lose for 2 consecutive years, they decrease their odds of regaining their weight by at least 50%. So sustainable is the key word there. Now going back to your question about balanced plate, um, so the my plate, which a lot of people have heard about or have seen from the the healthy guidelines for Americans is usually balanced with some carbohydrate, some protein, some fruits, and some vegetables. And the Harvard Healthy Eating Plate goes one step further with that, and they keep those same 4 separate food groups, but they specify that the carbohydrate portion should be a whole grain. The vegetable portion should be a non-starchy vegetable. The protein option should be a lean protein. So in thinking about that, we often can look at our evening meals as a balanced way of eating. We usually have a meat. We usually have a starch like a potato or rice, pasta, and we have a vegetable. But it's also important to think about having that same balance for the breakfast meal, for the lunch meal. So, in trying to have that consistently at meals, breakfast is probably the carb heaviest meal of the day, and being intentional about protein. It could be a Greek yogurt, it could be eggs. I've known patients to add nuts into their cereal as a means of not just adding a healthy protein, but a heart healthy fat to that meal. Proteins are important because it helps us to keep fuller longer. It helps the food to digest nice and slowly. But there's also a means of not enough or too much, too. Breakfast is also a meal that we fall short when it comes to vegetables. Um, so eggs are an easy way to add vegetables with breakfast because you can always add the spinach, the onions and peppers, the mushrooms and tomatoes in with eggs as a quick and easy way to get that in. My favorite thing to do with that personally is to get a cupcake pan. I prefer a silicone pan because they'll pop right out even easier. But if you mix up your eggs and your vegetables and pour that into the cupcake mold, bake them, you've got perfectly portioned proteins with vegetables set and ready to go. Makes it quicker and easier to get those 2 food groups in the morning.
Now you're making me hungry for breakfast.
Good, good.
That sounded really good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I did hear the word mentioned a lot, the word carb. And carbs always seem to be what people are talking about. And you might even hear, should I be cutting them out completely? They've definitely gotten a bad reputation in a lot of diet trends. So we want to know, is it true that carbs are bad for you?
I'm gonna go with a hard no on this one. Car, I say it all the time. Carbs are a necessity. Carbohydrates all digest into sugar, and that's where it scares a lot of people. But our brain and our muscle tissue use that sugar for energy. Use that sugar for fuel. So when we're eliminating these significant components of the diet, we are depriving body parts of the energy and fuel that it needs to be healthy and work efficiently. The 2 challenges with carbohydrates are the fact that they are the quickest digesting food. So, and a lot of people with diabetes know this because when they eat carbohydrates and they check their blood sugar, that carbohydrate has made it to the bloodstream in less than an hour, sometimes less than 30 minutes. So we know it's not in the stomach helping us to feel satisfied anymore. And carbohydrates in general tend to be foods that don't have a lot of volume to them. So one of the things that you can do at home is take a Ritz cracker, take a few pieces of cereal, and chew it. And you'll notice it disintegrates, it dissolves in the saliva in your mouth. So by the time it reaches the stomach, it's not making an impact on making you feel full. So it's a food that we definitely can overconsume by the recommended portion size. And it's a food that does not sustain us when it comes to keeping us full for a longer period of time.
Yeah. Definitely makes sense. Okay, so we're keeping carbs. We're gonna all note that.
Yeah.
And I feel like every time I scroll through social media, there's a new diet trend, and you always feel like, oh, should I try that? It's so easy to get caught up in the diet culture without even realizing it, and thinking thinner means healthier, even when that's not
Mhm.
always true. It seems
Yeah.
like there's a lot of pressure everywhere, to try these new trends. So, how can we avoid falling into that trap of diet culture?
That's a tough one. I know a lot of us, when we are looking for a diet pattern to follow, ultimately the priority for us is I want to be healthy. I want to be safe. I want to prevent health conditions, or I want to physically feel better, have more energy. So, one of the things to be mindful of is when a diet structure talks about restriction, severe restriction, eliminating again whole food groups or specific food choices. It would make me double take on the whole plan. One of the things I have people keep in mind is there is a research study that has shown over restriction will inevitably cause people to have binging episodes. So we're kind of counteracting the hard work that we're putting into this plan, and then again setting ourselves up for potential deficiencies. So the best way to go about it is looking for a plan that has your health concerns at the forefront. Try to get support from your qualified healthcare professional. They ultimately know your health history. They know what things to be concerned about, what would interact as far as eliminating whole foods or even taking certain supplements can interact with medications to be harmful. So I think making sure that you're looking out for that restriction and getting your healthcare professional involved is a good way to balance and make sure it's appropriate for you individually.
Yeah, I think that's definitely very helpful information for all of us, seeing these fad diets.
Mhm.
I guess another question we have, so for people who are ready to stop, jumping around from one diet to another, and, they really want to focus on building those healthy habits because their goal is to feel better. What do you recommend? Is there some small, realistic changes that someone can make instead of dieting?
Truly, it's about balance. Each food group that is included in the diet, whether it's the higher fiber carbohydrates, the protein, the fruits, the vegetables, each food group has a balance of nutrients that the body relies on to maintain health and wellness. Um, a lot of your health, how do I want to say that? A lot of your diet plans focus on reducing calories to achieve a weight loss goal. And oftentimes, continuously reducing the amount of food you eat puts you in a position where you're just going to feel more hungry. So, by focusing more on balance and the way that plate is designed, that food is going to make you feel better satisfied with more appropriate portion sizes. And it also, those food groups work as a team together to digest at an appropriate speed to keep you fuller longer. Um, when you are meeting your body's nutrient needs, you also have more energy. You're able to do the activities that you want to do throughout the week, and better stamina. Hydration is a piece of that. It was interesting. I had read a research study about even dehydration affecting quality sleep. So, sleep is a big part of having enough energy to do what you want to do the next day. So, balance, that's the key to focus on. If there's not balance, it probably doesn't have the nourishment and nutrition you need to be healthy.
Yeah, definitely makes sense.
The other small changes I was thinking about too, I made myself a couple notes. Smaller plates, our brain um, feels satisfied when we know, hey, I finished a meal. So when we have a big plate, we're more than likely going to eat more food. So using a smaller plate, but filling that plate too with that balance, our brain sees, okay, I completed the plate. I feel better satisfied. Um, Even eating more slowly. It takes the stomach 20 minutes to tell the brain, I have what I need. It's okay to stop. So, eating more slowly, kind of stopping to smell the roses, kind of thing, helps us to enjoy the food better and lets our body let us know when we've had what we need. So, even just little changes like that make a big difference.
Yeah, those are all great ones to put on our list. This has definitely been, such a helpful conversation, and I feel like I have a better understanding of, how fad diets work and what they are. But before we kind of wrap up here, I'd definitely love to hear your biggest takeaway.
Um, so again, balance. I can't talk enough about having that balance. Don't be afraid of carbs. Definitely the quality of the carbohydrate. So the more whole grain, the better. But even support systems. When you have a person that you are working on a common goal with, you are 3 times more likely to be successful with that change. So if it's a coworker you're working with on a common goal, if it's your significant other, if it's a family member, or even uh, we have fantastic dietitians in Geisinger that work with employees to help them reach their health goals for their healthcare rewards. Um, but those are important things. Have a support system and remember to focus on the small change. When you focus on making too big of a change at one time, you are less likely to be successful with that goal. So, baby steps.
I love it. We all need to remember one step at a time, and we'll hit our goals if we take those small steps. So great. And also, Sarah, are there any trusted resources that you can advise us to use or name, to help those that are interested in learning more about fad diets?
So, as dietitians, we have a credentialing organization, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Their website is eatright.org, and you can find articles about various different topics available on there. I also frequently read through one of the magazines called Today's Dietitian, where they talk about things like this, fad diets or new nutrition strategies um, to benefit various health conditions. But a lot of people don't know about our resource closer to home. Geisinger actually offers cooking classes, and they're available both in person and virtually. Our dietitian Amy Pinkham is fantastic. She keeps it fun, she keeps it relevant, and you can sign up on www.geisinger.org/cooking, and it's free to the public. So if you want to have a friend join you, you can do it that way. But she does 4-week courses once a month. So that's even something to check out too.
Yeah, that sounds really fun to do. And we could definitely use, all the knowledge that we can kind of get and, try to get ourselves to be at that spot where we want to be. So definitely thanks for sharing those resources.
Of
And thank
course.
you so much, Sarah, for sharing, your insight, your tips with us today. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. We hope that, everyone found this conversation helpful. We hope everyone learned some takeaways and new perspectives on fad diets and healthy eating. If you have questions or feedback, you can send those to wellness@geisinger.edu. And don't forget to join us next month. We'll be talking about thriving at work and how to create healthier, more positive workspaces. So we hope to see you next month. But thanks again, Sarah, for your time.
I really appreciate you having me. Thanks again.